Welcome to the Revolution Training. I'm Phil Grove.
I'm Shanoa Peck.
And for this bonus presentation, we're going to give it in tandem. So we're going to scrunch together real close and try to get this all in tandem. And we're going to go through the top investor mistakes.
And mistakes we don't want you to make.
Right. So these are the mistakes that we've either learned the hard way or preferably from watching somebody else learn it the hard way. And we're going to share this invaluable set of lessons with you. So welcome.
So let's go through the top 15 categories of mistakes that we've documented over the last several years. We're going to talk about mistakes related to buying condos, doing marketing, short sales, bandit signs, whether or not to become a realtor, a big question that most investors have, buying HUD properties, buying properties off of the MLS or using the MLS, lease options, owner financing and variations, building your business plan, action versus actual planning, buying in up markets, what people do wrong and buying in up markets, what people do wrong and buying in down markets, and what people do wrong in buying trading courses, quite frankly, buy and hold, different landlord mistakes, rehabbing mistakes, and wholesaling and bird dogging mistakes.
Let's get to it.
Let's get it. What are the top mistakes for buying condominiums? Well, the number one mistake is buying a condominium at all.
Yeah, condominiums are kind of what we call the canary in the coal mine. They're the first thing to go bad as markets start to decline, and they're the last things to come back when markets are on the way up. If it's easy to sell condos, man, you can sell anything.
Not paying attention to ownership ratios. If more than half of the condo is owned by one person or it's non-owner occupied, it may be very difficult for an end buyer to get a loan because lenders don't want to own on condos where it's mostly owned by just one single person.
And of course that means you're not going to be able to sell the thing, right? Because whoever you would try to sell it to would not be able to get a loan.
HOA fees are always a killer when it comes to condos. Sometimes they're as much as 30 or 40 cents a square foot a month. So if you're, renting and your condo goes vacant, guess what? You're not only still paying your mortgage, you're not only still paying your taxes, but you're also still paying these outrageous, HOA or condo fees to have flowers downstairs and to have a concierge desk down there.
Yeah, something I learned a long time ago in real estate is most buyers, all they care about is the monthly payment. So the problem with condos is because it's got a monthly payment plus a condo fee, the monthly payment of a condo compared to an equivalent house is always going to be hundreds of dollars more. So whenever you're in a market that's maybe not a perfect real estate market, condos are always impossible to sell because anybody would rather have the $1,200 a month house than the $1,200 a month condo with the $250 extra a month condo fee.
Another thing that we see often with investors who are buying brand new condos is that they're not paying attention to what they sign in the contract, meaning they're not paying attention to the actual resale rules. Some condos, when you buy a brand new unit, you cannot resell that unit for a year. It's part of your deed restrictions. So if you were thinking you were going to come in and buy it and then flip it really quickly, you've got the wrong idea. So definitely be careful about that.
And of course, not looking at the competition. When you buy something, if somebody opens up another unit that has better amenities or a better location, guess what? That's the hot new condo, and whatever you have may not be very valuable anymore.
And a lot of people, when they're looking at different condos because they can't decide which one's going to be the best one, they'll actually put multiple deposits down on multiple condos and multiple units just so they can have their pick and have the best of both worlds. But you can lose those deposits, so definitely be careful about that.
And of course, lots of other people have the same idea, by the way. When there's 3 condos going up in a city and everybody puts an option on all 3, guess what? Nobody's actually planning to buy all three. They're all waiting to see which one they want to buy, which means that somebody's going to be left holding a lot of different options. A lot of those properties are not going to get sold. A lot of those options aren't going to be worth very much.
And people, there's something in our psyche where we cannot walk away from something. For example, we've had several investors who have put deposits down on condos anywhere from $15,000 to $45,000, and we've had to tell them the cold hard truth, which is walk away as fast as you can from that condo, walk away as fast as you can from that money, because number one, you've got to deal with the resale rules. You can't resell it. And number two, in many markets, by the time that you can resell it, there are 3 other, new condos that are the hot new thing, and you can't, sell it. So
Right.
you need to sometimes just take your licks up front as opposed to trying to sell it and then try and sell it in a market that's actually going down.
Well, that's the old, we get into situations where would you rather lose $15,000 today or would you rather lose $50,000 in 6 months?
Guys, that was $15,000 today or $50,000 in 6 months.
Yeah, cut your losses if you're
losses.
going into a bad deal. Okay.
I've seen a ton of condos come up lately, and people have purchased them and they hadn't considered the view. I've seen condos that overlook, dump areas or parking garages or look right into other condos. And if you don't know what you're buying and because, you've got another condo that's coming up right next door, you may be looking into someone else's window. That view that you used to have may be completely blown right now.
We're actually doing a short sale right now for a condo, and the view was okay when he bought the thing, but then they built another building right next to it, and the parking garage for the building right next to it is right up against this guy. So this guy had a view, and now he's looking about 30 feet against the side of a parking garage. So that basically destroyed the value of his property, and now he's got a pretty expensive view of a parking garage, basically.
And we're doing a short sale with them. The other thing that we see people do is they buy for features that may not ever be realized. Some condos will say we'll have a dry cleaner, we'll have a coffee shop, we'll have a concierge, we're going to have restaurants, we're going to have other shopping on the lower floors. And a lot of times, quite frankly, they have to deal with the market too. And if, a business can't find a way to support themselves in that condo, that business may go away, or that business may never choose to open up shop there. And that may have been a big decision maker for you and for other people in purchasing that particular condo. And then those business owners go to the next new big condo.
And then buying in vacation areas, buying vacation condos, man, to me, that is a form of gambling. I've seen people make money at it. I've seen people lose a ton of money on it. I've seen them get ripped off by property managers. My advice, if you want to gamble, go to Vegas. It's quicker, it's easier, it's probably a lot more fun, but don't do it with condos.
And another final condominium mistake is taking 2 units and combining them into one big unit. Well, a lot of times you may just have made the biggest unit in the entire building, which may make it difficult, if not impossible, to resell. And that's just another big no-no for condos.
So those are the top condominium mistakes.
Yeah.
Marketing mistakes. Well, this is something near and dear to my heart. When we teach our class, we always say that the biggest reason that new investors get washed out of real estate investing is marketing. They simply don't do enough marketing. And I tell a story in the class, and I'll repeat it right now, that, most new investors, they don't do enough marketing. So in their first 2 or 3 or 4 months of being real estate investors, they might only look at 2, 3, 4, 5 deals. And what I always like to say is you got to look at 20 deals to find a good deal. If you only look at 2, 3, 4, 5 deals, then what happens is, we have the first group we call the skeptics. They don't do enough marketing, they're not looking at enough deals, they don't get enough leads, they only look at 5, and at the end of 3 months they say, you know what? this business is just too hard. There aren't any good deals in this business. We can't make any money at this. And they get washed out of the business. And then group number two, we call the group number two the gamblers. They don't do enough marketing either. They look at 3 or 4 or 5 deals and they say, well, number 3, this looks like the best one. Let's do this one. And statistically speaking, if you just pick the best 3 out of 5, best number 3 out of 5, it's probably not a good deal. It's probably not a good deal that you should have done. Those people do that deal. They're probably going to lose money on that deal. And if somebody loses money on their very first real estate investment, they will never come back. They're never going to reinvest again, because at the end of that first deal, 100% of their experience in real estate will be bad experience. And then there's group number 3. We call group number 3 the lucky gamblers. Lucky gamblers, don't do enough marketing. They only look at 5 deals. They pick deal number 3, and lo and behold, it works. They make money, they sell the thing, and now what's happened? They've been rewarded for bad behavior. So what do? They go out and do it again. They go out and look at 3 more deals and pick the best of those 3. You don't want to be in any of those groups, which constitute the vast majority of people that go into real estate. You want to be the guy that does plenty of marketing and looks at plenty of deals and gets to pick the ones that are good and profitable and make sense.
The other thing we see people do is they will only try a marketing strategy one time. You need to hit people over and over again. You need to not give up. There are people who will only market to the foreclosure list one time, and if they don't get anything, then they stop marketing to the foreclosure list. Well, the foreclosure list is the best group of motivated sellers, and sometimes you need to hit them over and over again before you actually are able to reach them and to get to them.
Yeah, that's all about multi-touch.
Right.
And, of course, not using the right words. The magic words for a lot of real estate advertisement is fast and cash. Okay, and cash is really, to most people, that just means fast. Why is somebody coming to sell us a house rather than just calling a realtor and selling the house traditionally? Generally, the reason somebody's going to sell a house to an investor is because they need to do it quickly. And as long as you can say fast and cash, it basically says quick and quick. Now, you can add some additional messaging beyond that. You can say as is, no problems, easy, yada, yada, yada. But fundamentally, you're saying fast and cash.
A lot of investors won't split test their marketing. Split testing, what does that mean? You may have 2 different marketing campaigns and you want to see how they both turn out, how they both work. Some people will try them individually one at a time. Others will just go with what they think is the best one. But if you're able to split test them and send them out to different groups of people and see which marketing actually gets the best response, then you're going to have a better idea of what marketing actually works in your particular area.
And it's always a good idea to keep track of, where your leads actually come from and how much you're paying to do your marketing. I know that after I was doing marketing for a couple of years, I added up all the money I spent on my marketing, and I added up all the leads that I had gotten, and I figured out that it cost me about $200 every time I got a lead. And that was really a good thing to do, because then I broke the code. I basically went back and I figured out that out of every 20 leads, I made a deal that got me at least $15,000 or more, which meant to get 20 leads, I had to spend $200 a lead. Times 20 leads is $4,000. Every time I spent $4,000, I made $15,000. So that was the moment of truth to me. Once I figured out that every time I spent $4,000, I made $15,000, it gave me the confidence to go out and really spend a lot of money on marketing. But you want to track, what's working and what's not, where your leads come from, how much you're actually spending on marketing. You're also going to have many different types of marketing campaigns. Some of these marketing activities take more time and less money. Some of these things take more money and less time. You want to have a sense of where you're spending your time and money so you know where you're getting the best return on your effort.
Right. You also need to follow up very quickly on all of your leads. Phil says these leads are expensive. Believe us, it's true. You'll need to follow up quickly Because if you don't follow up quickly, trust me, the next thing that person does after they leave you a voicemail is they call Phil, and if they leave Phil a voicemail, then they call me. So if I'm the person who actually gets them, then I may have the deal swiped out from underneath you before you even get an opportunity to call them back. So you need to follow up quickly with all the leads that you have. Remember that you paid for these. You need to try and get anything and everything you can out of these leads.
And you want to hit them right at the time of need. What do I mean by that? When you're marketing to motivated sellers, they have a once in a lifetime situation that they need a solution to. It's most likely that they probably never had to sell a house in a week or a month or 30 days or whatever before, and they probably never will again. So you have to provide the solution that they need for that once in a lifetime situation right at that one moment in their entire lifetime that they're going to need it. So you need to remember that, if you're just shotgun marketing to entire areas or whatever, most of those people are not going to be in that window of time where they actually need your product and service. And if they're not in that window of time, they're not going to even pay attention to any of your marketing. You need to figure out when they're right in the zone so that you can provide your service and market your solutions to them right at that time of need.
You also need to practice. You need to practice phone calls. You need to know what you're going to ask, the seller as soon as you get them on the phone. It's so critical to, actually have that, and not just practice, but it's really confidence, so that when you talk to someone, you sound like, yes, you're the person who can ultimately solve their problems. People really appreciate that. And, you need to know the questions to ask, and you're only going to do that as you practice the questions. Right. Know what you're doing, and that takes some time. So get started on that early as you're getting leads off your fresh marketing.
And to add to that, everybody sucks at this to beginning. I mean, when you first get your first lead and you call the guy up, how much are you going to give me for my house? And you're not going to know what to say, and you're going to flub your way through it. In our training class, we give comprehensive scripts and training and tell you exactly what to say and ask and how to, everything, but it still takes practice. One of the greatest things that I did for my real estate career when I got started is I actually got a couple of hundred old leads, and I called all these people up one after the next and started trying to buy their house. And, the first 5 or 6 or 7, as I talked to these people, I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to ask. I hadn't even had a lot of training. But I'll tell you what, by the 5th or 7th or 10th or 20th person that I talked to, I had it down. And I got to be very good at talking to people because, this may be the only time in their life that they've talked to somebody who's offering the services that I've talked. But now I've talked to thousands of people. So that experience is what gives me the confidence to come across as somebody who's going to be able to solve this problem, and that confidence makes me get a lot of deals.
And another note on that is, once you've done several thousand deals, you're going to get a little bit cocky. You're going to know exactly, what program you're going to want to shoehorn that seller into. You're going to you just know it all. So even for you out there who have done a lot of marketing and a lot of lead processing, you still need to be sensitive to the particular situations of your sellers, and don't just open book them, close book them, because that's not going to help you. You may not be able to get the deal done if you kind of act like I'm a know-it-all, and yes, I've heard this story 1,000 times before. And you need to be fresh about it. You need to be active about it.
And we tell this to everybody, but you should always join your local real estate clubs and meet other real estate professionals, real estate investors in your area. Share your experiences. This is a horse trading business. It's also a great place to share best practices, so learn from each other about what works in your area.
And you can't just market one way. You can't just market to sellers. You also have to market to other investors. In some cases, you even need to market to buyers to find, buyers for the properties that you're actually trying to sell. So you have to create these lists. You have to, farm these lists and feed these lists so that these people will continue to want to work with you and know who you are and know what you're doing. So you have to create the buyer's list, you have to create, the other investor list, so that you can flip these properties to the next person.
Okay, speaking of marketing, let's talk about bandit signs for a minute.
A lot of investors will put their bandit signs in the wrong places. How do you define a wrong place? Well, a sign that people just don't see, number one, or number two, even worse, a sign that gets picked up by the bandit, police right after it's been picked up.
Yeah, a lot of cities have ordinances that make putting bandit signs out illegal or finable or whatever. And one trick that people that do a lot of bandit sign marketing do is they use a disposable, a prepaid cell phone essentially, and they put the phone number of their prepaid cell phone on the bandit sign so that for one reason or another they essentially can't trace the bandit sign phone number back to a specific person. Now, we're not advocating doing that, but we are advocating that if you're going to do a lot of bandit sign advertising, it's something you might consider.
And you do need to watch out for the sign Nazis. A lot of times they will literally drive right behind you, not even 5 minutes, maybe even only a minute behind you, just picking up the signs that you just put out. So if you go and do your sign run, put out all your signs, you need to drive back by shortly after you do that to see where they're getting picked up and who's picking them up. So maybe you know that you'll just save a little money the next time and not put signs in the spots where the sign Nazis are coming and yanking them all before your potential seller even gets to see them.
And the next bullet is something I've made the mistake of doing. I just pay people to do bandit signs for me. And the truth is, it really doesn't work very well at all. Every time I've paid somebody to do this, they just stick them along the road and they don't put a lot of love and care. The people that seem to do really and have a lot of success with bandit signs are ferreting out those perfect little nooks in the bushes at the exit to the Home Depot, or they're hanging them up high on telephone poles where the sign Nazis can't pull them down and throw them away. And they're just really exploring the absolute best places to put them around town, and that marketing strategy gets a lot more response.
And if you do end up paying someone to put these out, which, if you get a good person, that's great, but don't pay them in advance. A lot of times we've heard horror stories where an investor spent hundreds of dollars on bandit signs only to have them thrown in the closest dumpster right after you pay the person to put them out. You also may want to have them put them out in your neighborhood, or in a neighborhood where you have friends or family or relatives, so you can ask them, hey, did that bandit sign go out there, or was that flyer put out there? And you've got a way to go back and check on them.
Not putting them high enough. I mean, I mentioned before, like putting them on telephone poles. Putting them on telephone poles means that they're probably not going to get pulled down and thrown away immediately. Now, how do you get a sign on a telephone pole? Well, I've got friends that do bandit sign marketing that actually have invented these ingenious little contraptions where they've got kind of a pole made out of a pipe of plastic with a little hook at the end, and they can actually hang the sign way up high on a telephone pole and then use another hammer that's on a little lever that's on an extension pole itself to kind of staple or hammer or nail that sign into the pole. So you can come up with some pretty creative little tools to get your signs hoisted up on poles or trees or wherever you're putting them.
And I think the way that works is they sort of prime the nail on the sign, so you actually just have to finish hammering it in, and then you're done. You also need to make sure and pick the right colors. What are the right colors? They're the colors that stand out. They're the colors that people notice. What we've noticed is that yellow, black, red, and blue, and of course white, work really, really well. But you have to make sure that your sign is readable. You have to make sure that the phone numbers stand out. You have to make sure that it stands out so that people can see them.
And do understand what the city ordinances are where you live. That regulate bandit signs. A lot of cities have no bandit sign ordinances, but some do. Some have fines, some have severe penalties. You really want to understand what is and not legal in your jurisdiction. All right, short sale mistake. Something near and dear to my heart. we've done over 1,000 short sales, and we've learned a few mistakes along the way.
So many people give up after they do their first short sale. They just say, God, that really sucked. It took up all my time. A short sale should really be called a long sale. They never want to do it again. They give up on the idea completely. And in actuality, if that's the lead that comes into you, you need to be able to know what to do with it, and you need to be able to make some money off of it.
Yeah, short sales are a numbers game, and the majority of them don't make you any money. So don't be surprised if you spend a lot of time on something and it doesn't make you any money. You got to do a lot of these to make money on them.
And you desperately have to stay on top of these lenders. I can't tell you how many times, our short sale team has told us that the lender has lost the entire file and they had to start all over again, meaning send the whole 70-page package back into the lender. And it can be very painful, but you need to stay on top of them. If they tell you, oh, we'll have it sorted out in 2 weeks, call us back in then, by the time that you call them back in 2 weeks, they'll say, we don't even have your authorization to speak with us. So you need to stay on top of them, and sometimes even more than what they would like you to. It's okay to bug the hell out of these people. They need it. They need to keep your file at the top of their list.
And not filling out the correct forms. Every lender has some unique forms, and you need to have the lender's specific forms when you do a short sale with that particular lender. What happens is if you send in a short sale packet and it's missing some paperwork, most of the time they will just throw that packet into the trash. They won't call you back and they won't say, you're missing form, whatever. They'll just throw it away, and they'll never tell you what went wrong, and you'll call in and they'll say, we never got a packet from you. So the way to get these packets submitted properly is to understand exactly what paperwork is needed and give them exactly what they want, exactly the way they want it.
And when you get that paperwork, you need to make sure to fill it out correctly. A lot of people who want to do short sales, when they write their hardship letter, they want to sort of put a smiley face at the end of their story. And basically say that, I lost my job, but now I'm back on track and I have my job and I got my horse back and my truck's working and my dog came back to life. So you need to make sure when you're trying to do a short sale that you're filling those forms out so that it looks like it's not just a one-time financial issue for you, that it is something that's ongoing, that you cannot get back on track on your payments.
Yeah, if the client tries to write a hardship letter that basically says, I have a temporary problem, they may not be accepted into the short sale program.
You have to go over these items in detail sometimes with the homeowner. We've had homeowners that we've talked to that have had 5 kids. When we're filling out the financial forms, or when they're filling out the financial forms in front of us, and we go back through and review it, we've seen homeowners that have said, oh, I only spend $400 a month on meals. And it's like, are you kidding me? You have 5 kids. That's impossible. So make sure you go over with the homeowner. Their money's going somewhere. That's why they can't make the mortgage payment. So you need to understand what that is, and you need to make sure that they document that properly. Otherwise, they're not going to get approved for the short sale.
And speaking of homeowners, you have to keep track. You have to keep tabs on your homeowners. We start short sales with people. And sometimes they move out of the house during the short sale process. Sometimes they even change their phone numbers, or their phone numbers get disconnected. So we always make sure that we have contact information of their friends, relatives, ways to stay in touch with them. Because a lot of times a short sale takes a long time. Might take 3 months, might take 6 months. We've had them take over a year. You need to be able to get that homeowner on the phone when you're ready to actually close the deal.
You really have to stay on top of these homeowners. Sometimes after a while, they'll totally lose interest in the short sale process, and they will sort of abandon the short sale right when you're in the middle of it, or even worse, right when you're about to close. So you need to keep them interested. You need to keep them motivated. A lot of times it's good for them to actually, continue to stay in the house so that they, know that that's a continuing problem that they're going to have to resolve.
And staying in touch with the homeowners, number 3, every once in a while we'll get into a situation where a short sale takes so long that the homeowner actually starts fishing or shopping the deal to other investors. maybe we've done all the work, and then they try to get some other investor to start a short sale with them, which is a crazy thing. But if you put all the work into any kind of a deal, and this is going to be a deal that makes you money, and you deserve to get paid on that. One little trick we use is sometimes we do something called a memorandum of contract. We basically put a notarized cover sheet on a contract and we file it against the property. That way, if anybody else tries to get that property under contract and run title search on that property, it'll show that a pre-existing contract exists.
You also need to track the foreclosure list. We've had several instances where the lender has told us and sworn up and down and even insulted us, saying that property is not going to foreclosure, that property is not on the foreclosure list, and we simply tell them over and over again, I have the foreclosure list, I'm holding it in my hand, I'm looking at everything that you filed with your, a trustee, with the attorney, and you can't tell me that that's not the case. And they will foreclose sometimes on these properties anyway. But if you're just believing what they're telling you, and sometimes they're not going to tell you the truth, or they simply don't know, then you're going to miss, a lot of your properties that you're working short sales on, because they will potentially go to foreclosure.
Well, it's an understatement to say that the right hand and the left hand don't know what each other are doing. The banks have a lot of right hands and left hands, and very often the loss mitigation people and the collections people have no idea what their own trustees, the lawyers they've hired to do the foreclosure, are up to. So don't ever believe when somebody tells you it is on the list or it's not on the list, it is going to get foreclosed on. You need to actually check with their trustees.
And you also need to verify the loan status. You need to do a title run. There could be a second lien on this thing that the homeowner didn't tell you about. There could be an HOA liens. I've had HOA liens kill some short sale deals. And these HOAs are crazy. I mean, they'll charge like $2,000 or $3,000 for someone being behind only maybe 6 months to a year. So you really need to stay on top of that. The tax liens as well. You need to ask the right questions up front. And if you ask a question like, are there any other liens? And they say, well, what do you mean by that? And they don't get real specific with you with the answer. You need to do a deep dive with them and say, why did you pause on that answer? What are the thoughts that are really going through your mind? Because if you let that go, you're going to be surprised when you get to the closing table and the title company says, well, who's paying for this, abstract of judgment? I mean, you need to know that up front, because it's going to be you who's paying.
Right. And, don't expect to make big money on every short sale. It is a numbers game. It's kind of a high volume, low margin business. You can make hundreds of thousands of dollars on short sales, and we have made hundreds of thousands of dollars on short sales, but those are fairly rare. Maybe 1 in 10 actual deals that you get started results in some significant profit.
You also need to prep the homeowner for the BPO agent, for the broker price opinion, which is essentially the lender's, appraiser going out there to tell the lender what the property is actually worth. You need to coach the homeowner, tell them what to say. We've had some of the best homeowners do this, and we've had some of the worst homeowners do this. On the best side, we've had the homeowners who have actually walked their BPO agent through the property and said, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And by the way, all the houses around me are in foreclosure. That's a great person, to have on your side as your advocate to try and get the short sale done. But we've also had the homeowner who said, I don't know where they came up with that number that they offered. It's such a low ball number. I couldn't believe I had to accept that thing. And this house is perfect, and I made all these improvements, and that homeowner will shoot herself and himself and you in the foot.
Well, the homeowner just needs to know that it's in their best interest and everybody's best interest if the broker price opinion, the realtor, the lender appraisal comes in as low as possible, because that's going to create the most different options to get the property sold.
Right.
All right, to be or not to be, a realtor, that is. I am not a realtor. I have figured out along the way that the disadvantages versus advantages mean that it's better to not be a realtor and to be a real estate investor. And the reason is because I run into people all the time that are already listing their house with a realtor. If I were a realtor, I couldn't even talk to them. But because I'm not a realtor, I can talk to them. I can negotiate a deal. I can tell them to fire their realtor and call me back. I can do anything I want. And that freedom, I think, is good for me and is why I am not a realtor.
And so many investors try to do it all. They try to be the chief investor, the CEO, the financial advisor, the, dishwasher in the company. I mean, you really need
and the realtor,
and the realtor, right? You can't do it all. You want to have other people on your power team. Remember when we went through the power team examples? One of the number one people on there is having a realtor. You really need that person, but that person does not necessarily have to be you.
And if you are considering becoming a realtor, you might want to take a personality test to see if you'd even be good at it. Realtors are salespeople. Are you a salesperson? Do you have the skills to be a salesperson? Now, real estate investors also need to be salespeople, but that being said, there's a lot of different skills needed when you create a real estate investment company. If you have a partner that's a salesperson, maybe they should be the salesperson. And you should be the operations person. You need to figure out what you're good at and maybe what your partner's good at if you're not good at sales.
And as a realtor, you have limits of, ethical actions. You can't, get a call from a homeowner who has a house listed with a realtor and tell that homeowner to tell their realtor to take a hike. You just can't do that as a realtor. But as an investor, you can tell the realtor to take a hike all day long.
Yeah. In fact, realtors have to actually disclose that they are realtors. And, that may or may not be a good thing that you would want to disclose to a potential seller. Because the next question could be, well, then how much is my house worth? And you've actually got fiduciary responsibilities to tell them what their house is worth if you're a realtor, which may or may not be, in the best interest of your negotiation.
And in most states, realtors have to use forms that are promulgated by the state, meaning they're practically mandatory forms. You can't come up with your own form. You can't practice law. You can't typically use just a basic one-page contract, but that's okay if you've got the regular state contract filled out. But that is a limit on you, and you do need to understand that.
Yeah, in fact, realtors are held to a much higher standard than investors. They are responsible to disclose all aspects of the deal. They're responsible to disclose what each property is worth, and anything going on with the property.
You need to have a realtor on your team who has the experience you need to decide on how, you can best invest in an area. As a new investor, you need smart people on your team. You need people on your team who have experience in the areas that you're investing in, and not just experience like, you may have as starting out over the past couple of weeks or months. You need someone who has a long history in that neighborhood that can tell you the pros and cons of investing in a particular property.
And if you don't disclose, by the way, that you're a realtor in a transaction, you're fundamentally asking for trouble.
And a lot of investors get too much what we call book education. There's too much learning, not enough doing, and they basically say that they want to become a realtor, so they're wearing all these different hats. But what you need to know as a realtor is that you are paying a lot of money in MLS fees. You're paying a lot of money in realtor fees to keep that license up and running, and it gets very expensive.
Buying HUD homes. Well, we like to buy HUD homes, and we actually treat buying HUD homes as really more as a marketing strategy than as a investment strategy. In other words, we just make offers when we see HUD homes, and sometimes we get them, and sometimes we don't. But one of the most common mistakes that what we call civilian investors make is they assume just because it's a foreclosure or just because it's an FHA or HUD foreclosure, it's a good deal. No, there's nothing guaranteed that it's a good deal. It's just a foreclosure. A lot of foreclosures are terrible deals.
And a lot of these HUD homes, when you're doing your due diligence, obviously you want to turn the utility, you want to do an inspection. And most of these HUD homes don't have the utilities turned on, so you actually have to turn on the utilities. So that's just an extra added cost when you're buying a HUD home.
And do remember that, a lot of the HUD foreclosure homes tend to be in, areas of concentrated FHA lending and concentrated foreclosures. So if you're buying a property in an area that has a lot of foreclosures, you're going to have a difficult time reselling that property. Don't assume you can buy a HUD home on the, as a foreclosure and then immediately resell it at some, much higher value, because you're going to be competing against all the other HUD foreclosures in the area when you go to sell.
And there are several rules associated with buying HUD homes. We've got 3 here that investors and any buyer typically mess up. The number 1 thing is not buying or not filling out the contract in blue ink. You have to fill it out in blue ink. As ridiculous as that sounds, that is a requirement of these HUD contracts. You also need to get the earnest money to the REO agent in time, and literally it's like somewhere between 24 and 48 hours. Otherwise, you're going to lose the property because they're just going to go off and auction it again if you don't get your money there in time. And then the third thing is, if you are not going to owner occupy this property, if you are buying it as an investor, it's scary. Do not buy it as an investor during the owner-occupant period, because if they catch you, there could be some very ugly and scary fines. So if it's in that 10-day owner-occupied period, wait until that's done. If it's still available after that, then it's open to all investors, and that's when you can start bidding on the property.
And something that's interesting, when you buy HUD homes, usually you're going to be working with a realtor who's going to be helping you. Special realtors have a special key to get into HUD homes, and the realtor might actually be getting up to a 5% commission when they sell you that HUD home. Well, I don't know about you, but I mean, I'm a real estate investor. I can't afford for some realtor to get 5% of a deal. There's usually just not enough margin in the deals that I do to be able to have a realtor make that much commission. So work out a deal with your realtor where you get some rebate of some of the commission that they're getting. Now, what I like to do generally on a lot of deals that I do is I work out a deal with a realtor where the realtor may rebate me, all or maybe all but 1% of the commission for whatever commission they get when I buy a house, in exchange for an agreement that I will have them list the house for me after I've made whatever improvements I'm going to make and sell it again. I keep a lot of realtors, gainfully employed, and they're very happy to take that deal from me.
A lot of investors will put in the incorrect offer. What does that mean? Sometimes they'll put in too high of an offer. Other times they'll put in too low of an offer. If you put in too high of an offer, you obviously may have overpaid for a property. But I've seen it both ways. I've seen a HUD property that was listed for $130,000 that went for $148,000, and I had a buyer who thought they were going to get it easily with an offer of $140,000. So you need to understand, what that property goes for in that market, what that property goes for in that neighborhood, and you need to bid accordingly. But you never want to get out of what we call your maximum allowable offer, which is your 70% of ARV minus repairs, and you need to really stick with that formula, even if it does get exciting there with some of the bidding.
And, again, our strategy on these things is, just make offers, offer what makes sense as an investor offer, and don't take it personally. A friend of ours has been making offers on HUD homes for the last 18 months. 12 months in a row, he made offers on several different properties. They all got turned down. And then 1 month, 2 of his offers got accepted. So it's kind of like buying lottery tickets. Some of them are going to be accepted. We just treat this almost like a marketing opportunity. It's just another way to pick up some houses.
And for some properties, you're definitely going to want to get an inspection. I've got a storyline here about a house that was a HUD foreclosure, and it was a brand new house. No one had ever lived there. And the investor who bought it said, I can tell everything looks good, looked up, looked down. didn't get the utilities turned on, just said, yeah, I know what I'm buying here and I'm fine with it. Well, after he got the utilities turned on, he found out that the septic was not connected really to the city.
Or the water.
The water and the sewer line were not connected to the city. And guess what? This thing just wasn't set back 25 feet from the street. This thing was set back like 100 feet from the street. So it added a lot of extra costs to this investor, and in the end, he didn't make any money off of it because he spent his entire profit digging a trench and putting a pipe from the house to the street, and that can get very expensive. So you need to understand what you're buying, and a lot of times you might not understand because the realtor who's the REO agent may not have all the answers.
Let the buyer beware.
Yeah, let the buyer beware.
Buying properties from the MLS. I have to say, I rarely buy properties that are listed on the MLS. The only exception might be sometimes I'll buy an REO, a bank foreclosure property. But other than that, I just rarely buy anything on the MLS.
And one of the big reasons why most people don't is because the seller's probably not motivated. And it may or may not be a good deal, a good investor deal. It may be a great retail deal, but if the seller's not very motivated and or the seller owes more than what it's listed for, then it just may not be a good enough deal for you to get involved in.
And a lot of times, what I call civilian buyers and new investors, they pay attention to what the seller says the ARV, the after repaired value, is going to be. The only person that really should determine what the after repaired value is you, the investor, and with the help of your realtor.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, what somebody tells you it should be worth this and it ought to be worth that, that's don't pay any attention to it.
And the same thing goes for repair estimates. You need to get your own contractor in there. You need to get your own foundation company in there. You need to get your own HVAC person in there. You need to get your own estimates, because if you're just relying on the seller, they may be using, estimates that were good in the 1970s, but not good today. So you need to make sure you understand what you're buying and how much it's going to cost to repair.
And we give quite a lengthy discussion on how to determine what properties are worth in the regular training class. But one mistake new investors make is they rely on the tax records for validation of value. And it's just it can be dramatically off. It can be quite inaccurate.
And a lot of new investors put down too much option money. They put down too much earnest money. When you put down too much option money and you don't ask for enough time to evaluate the property, that's just money you just burned. If you're an investor who's a wholesaler, you need to ask for at least 45 days for an option period. If you're an investor that's, still, it's not a cash deal and you don't have the money lined up, you need some time to, make sure that you can get that money lined up and make sure you know what the repairs are actually going to cost you on a property. Now, a lot of investors, and I've got one crazy feng shui story, but a lot of investors will put down too much earnest money. And essentially, you risk it all if you can't come up with the money to purchase the house at the end. I had one property where I had a buyer who put down $5,000 earnest money on a $125,000 house, which was
you were the selling agent.
I was the selling agent.
You would never let your buyer
I would never let my buyer do that, and this is the exact reason why. So, I thought after we got past the option period, I told my seller, I said, this is a done deal. I said, there's no way that this buyer is going to come back or is not going to execute the deal, because she's got $5,000 riding on the line on this property, and she wants to close this. She has to close this. Well, her parents came in and said that this house that she was buying had terrible feng shui and that she should not buy the property. This woman called me and told me that on the phone. I just about fainted Phil has a little saying about feng shui too. About
well, you can buy a lot of mirrors and fountains for $5,000. That's
sure
all I
can.
try to tell her.
But as an investor, be careful with how much option money and how much earnest money that you put down, because it's okay to lose a $10 option money, but it's not okay to lose thousands and thousands of dollars in earnest money.
And the other big problem I have with buying anything on the MLS is it's ridiculous to think that you're going to be able to sell it for more than you bought it for. A lot of people, they buy a house on the MLS and they buy it for $150 because the realtor or somebody tells them, oh, this property is worth $200, but you can get it for $150. Well, guess what? When you buy that house for $150, it will be recorded in the MLS that you bought it for $150. It will then show up to anybody who wants to appraise it that it was sold for $150. If you then turn around and without making a major remodel or whatever of the house, and you put it right back on the market for $200, a buyer is going to walk in and they're going to ask their realtor, what's this house worth? And the realtor is going to say, well, this guy bought it for $150 3 weeks ago. I'd say it's worth about $150. So
that sales record will haunt you, and it will stay with you. So be careful.
Don't ever believe that if you buy something on the MLS that you're going to be able to sell it for any more than you bought it from the MLS, unless you turn it into a totally different house through a very, very dramatic remodel. Lease options, owner financing, and all the various variations and the mistakes. First of all, like any real estate transaction, make sure you understand what is and is not legal in your state. In some states, things like lease options are illegal. In some states, sub-2 financing is illegal. So you can't do them all everywhere, and you need to know what you can do where you are.
Also remember that in some states it may be easier to foreclose on someone than it might be to evict them. For example, in Texas, you have a 21-day foreclosure window versus a 30-day eviction window. So be sure to know what the laws are in your states and consider that when you're writing up these contracts and deciding whether or not to do them.
Non-transferring to the deed to the new owner upon execution of the closing. Obviously, that's required, and you've got to make sure that you do that.
You also need to make sure that the new owner is actually, making not just the monthly mortgage payment, but also paying for the insurance. Remember, you could be responsible if the house burns down, so you need to make sure that that's getting taken care of.
Yeah, and if you're a lender, you always ask that the buyer, for example, if you're owner financing something or if you're lending money to somebody, lists you as additional insured, and you have to have proof that the insurance is current and paid. A lot of people, when they owner finance, they don't take the extra time to make sure that's being done. And the same thing exists with taxes. If you owner finance something or lease option something or whatever, you need to make sure that the taxes are being paid. Sometimes the loan does not include escrows for taxes and insurance. And if the taxes aren't getting paid, you could get into a situation where you may owner finance something to somebody, they stop making payments, you get the property back, and not only do you have missed several payments they've made, but you might owe a year or more in taxes as well.
And the same thing goes for HOA fees. I have seen HOAs try to foreclose on $150,000 properties with a $1,500 lien. So you need to make sure that all that stuff is getting paid for in the note.
Yeah. And not doing a proper credit check on the buyer. It's really easy to do credit checks on people. If you're going to especially owner finance something to somebody, you might want to have some idea of whether or not they have credit or what kind of credit history they have. Now, you don't have to necessarily have them qualify as stringently for a loan as a lender might, but you certainly want to know a little bit about their credit history.
So to do that, you're going to want them to fill out a loan application. A loan application is going to give you information about their social security number, their driver's license number, their checking accounts, their birth dates, their work history, their bank info, etc., etc. So if you end up having to foreclose on someone that you don't have a loan app on, you may not have the pertinent information for you to even file some sort of a judgment against them in the event that you do have to foreclose.
Now, there are many variations of lease options and mortgage assignment programs, owner financing, equity holding trusts, and we teach all of these in our full training class. But you need to understand that if the deal ever goes south, the judge is going to look at this thing and they're going to see it for what it is. For example, an equity holding trust, if it's got a lease and an option variation that you're implementing, it's a lease option. So don't get fooled into thinking that, if you sprinkle a little pixie dust on a deal, it's going to be a different deal.
And also you have to always remember the due on sales clause. I mean, there's a potential chance that it could get called. So you need to understand that, and you need to have every party who's involved in the deal understand that. And you also, we've done a lot of sub-2 transactions, lease options when they used to be legal in Texas, but some people worry too much about them, and that stops them from doing a deal that would otherwise be a good deal. So don't get too much in a tiz about that. You also need to notify all parties in writing, preferably, that there is a due on sales clause. That way, in the event that something does go terribly wrong, they were aware of it in advance and they know how to handle it.
So the due on sales clause is generally in any kind of a owner finance situation or buying or selling subject to wraparound mortgages. I will say it's not something that you really need to worry a whole lot about, but you do need to understand it and make sure all other parties in the deal understand it as well. Building your business plan. Well, we have a very pragmatic approach when it comes to building a business plan. I almost tell people don't build a business plan, but what I really mean by that is a lot of times people, they just spend too much time planning and not enough time doing. It is okay to go out and buy a house in your own name. It's perfectly legal. You'd rather be the guy who goes out there and starts doing deals and starts making money and then starts, building corporate structures and things, after you start getting your business done. And the only reason we say that is we see too many people that spend months and sometimes even years planning and developing websites and collateral and the ultimate, corporate entities and structures and this and that.
And by the time they roll it out, the market's already gone or changed to something else.
Yeah, and they never get out there and do something. So the priority really needs to be get out there and do something.
You also need to be careful not to just listen to your lawyer or not to just listen to your CPA. Your lawyer's trying to do everything they can to help you cover your assets. And they may have you take enormous steps to do that make building a business and growing a business, impossible.
They're just worried about liability.
They're worried about liability. And, the CPA is going to, have a different worry, and they're going to want to make sure that they keep your taxes as low as possible. You really need to get your lawyer and your CPA to sit down together, and you need to go over your business plan with them so that they can tell you the structure that's going to work best for you and a structure that's going to help you do repeatable business, meaning be in business as opposed to just doing paperwork all the time.
Yeah, I had a lot of trouble with that when I was getting started. My lawyer wants me to put every single property I own in a separate, LLC or whatever, and then my CPA has to tell me, well, that means you're going to have to do, 26 different tax returns and have mountains of, statements.
True story, people.
And monthly bank statements and all these other things. It can get way too complicated. So I did exactly that. I had to sit my lawyer and the CPA down in the same room and basically come up with a common workable plan to grow my business.
You also need to spend your time on the right things, meaning you need to spend your time initially on all of your marketing. You need to spend your time initially on how you're dealing with the leads that come in, what questions you're asking them, what's your lead processing. Spend more time on that than you spend initially on your business plan. Get the engine going and then put it all together nice with a little nice bow. Yeah,
we always say that, you should be spending 85% of your time as a new investor on marketing. Look for deals, look for deals, look for deals. Deals are always going to find money. Money's looking for deals. You'll always have people that will partner. You always have people you can wholesale to. There's a lot of things you can do if you got the deal. If you don't got the deal, you really don't have anything.
And what does Phil always say? He's strategy agnostic. You can't just select one strategy and that's all you write up in your business plan. And those are the only kinds of deals that you do. If you do that and the market changes, then you've got to rewrite the entire plan, or you just pigeonhole yourself into only looking at certain kinds of deals. You really need to open it up and open up your business plan so that you can focus on more deals and different deals.
Yeah, one strategy, the story I always love to tell is about a year and a half ago, I flipped a house and I made $300,000 on the house. And what was really amazing about that deal was not that I made $300,000 on the deal. What was amazing is that 7 other investors looked at the deal before me. I was the 8th guy to look at the deal. And the reason that 7 guys passed on an opportunity to make $300,000 was they were all looking at the deal like this, oh, it doesn't fit my strategy. And the next guy's like, well, I only do short sales. The next guy, I only do rehab. It was a complicated deal. It took a lot of different strategies, but making your way through the maze ended up creating an opportunity to make a lot of different money. Okay, buying properties in up markets.
First of all, you need to recognize that you actually are in an up market, because your strategy is going to change in an up market versus in a down market or a flat market. You may be willing to spend, a little bit more in an up market.
Now, it's okay to pay a little bit more, meaning that if prices are going up and you're working on a project that's a big, complicated project, then there's a pretty good chance that in 6 or 8 or 12 months when the project is done, we're talking about things like construction, major additions, things like that, the house could very well be worth more than it was estimated to be worth at the time that you bought it. So rising tides lift all ships, and a lot of money can be made in rising markets. You can't really count on that. That's why we say, a little bit more. But it is certainly safer to pay closer to top dollar for properties, top investor dollar for properties when markets are going up.
And in an up market, you need to not be afraid to tackle the big projects. At the beginning of an up market, it's okay to start a 6 to 12 month project, but at the end of an up market, you don't want to be starting that major project, because you don't want to finish it during a time where the market has changed and you may not be able to sell the property as easily as you could have when it was an up market.
Yeah, a lot of investors get stuck with their pants down when they build big, complicated, expensive properties, and then the market goes south and they can't sell them. So you also want to have some sense of where you are in the market. Now, obviously, we never know, in foresight exactly where the market is going. You only know for sure when you look back. But that being said, there are certain indicators. For example,
months of inventory.
Yeah, months of inventory starts to rise.
Days on
There's
market.
something going on. Average days on market, and the canary in the coal mine, right?
Condos.
Yeah, condos. When condos start to get a little harder to sell, the market's changing. All right, buying properties in down markets. Well, the first thing you want to do is you want to recognize when it's a down market, and certainly, like we said before, canary in the coal mine. When condos start getting hard to sell, that's an indicator. Time on market, average days on market of properties, inventory in the market that's for sale going up is an indication that the market may be turning in a down direction.
It is definitely not, N-O-T, not okay to pay that little extra bit more in a down market. Do not let competition get the best of you. Do not let the desire to, have your next project get the best of you. Do not pay more for a property than it's worth when you're going into a down market cycle.
Yeah, and the worst possible thing you can do with a down market is you can do big complicated projects, projects that take 6 or 12 months to complete, because if a market starts to go down, the last thing you want is to be, riding that wave down, end up with a big expensive beast to sell in a down market, a year into that down market. When we have down markets, we start doing quick little projects. We call them prehabs. We get in, we get out, we do minimal fix-up and sell it as cheap as we can. We do not want to stay in properties for long periods of time if the market's going down.
And you need to, again, be able to recognize when the market is changing and know when you want to get back into the market and start to do some of the, higher end or longer projects. Your strategy needs to change as the market changes, and you need to be cognizant of that, because that's going to be the difference between you making money and not making money in a down market.
And one of the indicators you see is, when a market kind of bottoms and starts to come back up, you're going to see an acceleration in sales. The number of properties sold all of a sudden starts to go up, and the prices start to not change. When you start to see an acceleration, the number of properties sold and the prices holding, you know that there's something going on, and then the next thing you're going to see is prices start to come up.
Yeah.
Buying training classes. So how in the world did this slide get in this presentation here?
Well, we've talked to so many different investors that have come and actually taken our class and have basically said, I wish I would have found you guys first, because I've spent thousands and thousands. And when they say thousands and thousands, we've talked to a lot of people who have spent over $25,000 on, courses that they didn't get any takeaway from it. So that's how this slide got in here.
Yeah, actually, we've had a number of people have literally said, I spent $25,000 on a program from, blank, 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 and then they're like, gosh, your program's even better, and it's much less expensive. So do some homework on, who your trainers are, a little bit about the course. Is this for real?
Or is it just another upsell?
Yeah. Is there a lot of bad stuff written about it? Does the company that provides it, Better Business Bureau approved? I actually don't know anybody other than us that's Better Business Bureau approved when they sell this stuff.
You also need to be aware of buying on the spur of the moment. A lot of the offers that you'll have are, we can only offer this for one day, and they take, the next day they quadruple the price on you. So just need to understand that sometimes that's how the offering comes across.
They don't really quadruple the price. If you called the next day and you offered to buy it for $1,000 or $2,000, they'd still take your deal.
And they also try and get you to go ahead and buy now because there's a fear of scarcity. We've seen a presentation before where they start screaming, forms, 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 I need more forms, and like running around creating mass hysteria. And in actuality, there are like 1,000 forms sitting right there in front of them. So beware of a false sense of scarcity out there.
And if you do buy a product and it's a piece of crap, don't be afraid to return it.
I've seen a lot of people who never take the course out of the shrink wrap plastic material. They never, they spend $1,000 or $2,000 or even more on it, and then they never even open it. So those, that's a real bummer. If you spent the money, you better open it up and you better try it out.
And if you're going to join a mentoring program or a training class or something, do make sure that you've got some tools to help yourself stay accountable. Build a business plan, build an action plan. And, this is really about doing. It's not just about learning. You can learn all day long, but until you actually do something, you're not going to make any money. And it's just going to be a big academic exercise.
And there's nothing more frustrating than going to a course expecting to get, a lot of heavy, hard-hitting content, and then it turns out that it's only another pitch to sell the next, several $1,000 course. That can be very upsetting, but you need to sort of look into it and see, what others are saying about it and make your decision based on that.
I mean, I've actually seen 2, 3, 4, and even 5-day boot camps that are nothing but you go there and you get a series of sales pitches to buy other products and services, and that's ridiculous. If I'm going to a boot camp, I want hardcore knowledge. When we give a boot camp, it is, 2 days of 9 or 10 hour days, 400 pages of material, just, all content, very, very deep stuff. But you don't know what you're getting necessarily unless you really dig into it, because sometimes you go to a 2-day boot camp and you find out that, hey, this is just to try to sell a mentoring program or some other boot camp.
You also need to sort of register a complaint if the course doesn't deliver what it says it's going to deliver.
Expecting the material to be your ultimate guide, and you won't need any practical experience. This is really about doing. I like to use the example. You could hire Lance Armstrong to write you a book on how to ride a bike, and he's arguably the world's best bike rider. And you could read the book, and he would teach you how to pedal and shift and lean and put your helmet on and everything else. And at the end of that, reading that book, you wouldn't know a damn thing about riding a bike, because you got to get on the bike. There's no replacement for practical experience.
And the next bullet point really goes through the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Don't buy something just because one person one time made $100,000 using that strategy. The whole truth, if they tell you that this is $1 million strategy, the whole truth may be that they made $1 million on it a couple of times, but all the rest of the times they only made nothing, or yeah, exactly. So beware and try and get to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Well,
it's just like what I always say with the short sales. I made $3 million doing short sales. That's the truth. What's the whole truth? The whole truth is I made $3 million doing about 1 out of 10. I made $3 million doing 1,000 short sales. I actually made $3 million doing 100 short sales, and almost nothing doing 900 other short sales. So there's always, a truth and a whole truth that you want to understand when you do this. And
no offense to the national gurus out there, because there are some that really offer a lot of great content. But
I'm becoming a national guru.
That's true. But you do have to worry, because sometimes, just because they have a big name doesn't mean that they're really all that good. It could just be a big, marketing front. So you have to just sort of be aware of that.
Thanks. Buy and hold. Landlording and the mistakes that go along with this. This is something we know a lot about. We do a lot of this because it's overall part of our big wealth building strategy. And what I always like to tell my CPA is, hey, I want to get rich. I don't want to make any money. And what that means is, my perfect life is that I have a lot of income, I have a lot of expenses, I have a lot of capital gains that I don't have to pay a lot of taxes on. But most importantly, each year my net worth goes up and up and up and up, because I have a lot of properties, a large portfolio of properties that are becoming worth more and more and more over time. So that's all what buy and hold is all about. So there's a lot of things that we've learned along the way about buy and hold and what to do and what not to do, starting with
a lot of investors, the mistake that they make is they'll buy new houses and brand new subdivisions. Why is that so bad? Well, the reason why they do this strategy is because they think they're going to have very little maintenance costs. Well, that may be true, but in truth, when you're buying in a newer home subdivision, you're buying the property based on the cost of the house, not on the actual value of the land. The value from a buy and hold standpoint is truly in the dirt. It's location, location, location. So you need to, when you're looking at properties to purchase, you need to focus in on the value of the dirt, the value of the land, because in the end, even if you didn't have to replace a water heater or an HVAC unit, if it's out in the boondocks and the price is only going up $2,000 or $3,000 a year, in 10 years you might have $20,000 or $30,000, versus you did have to replace an air conditioning system or a roof on an older home, but the value of that land went up $100,000 over a 10-year period. Big difference.
Yeah. I mean, that's really what we're talking about. When we buy and hold, we're looking at the total return on investment. And the total return on investment has to do with, what the house is worth, when you go to sell it versus what it was worth when you bought it, plus or minus whatever cash flow you made along the way. And, you can make cash flow that's a little bit more or less, but it's really all about appreciation.
A lot of new investors will buy homes where they're, areas where there's more construction coming. They may say, I've got this great lot and it backs up to this field. Well, guys, by the way, that field is someday going to be, a huge subdivision with a bunch of other houses. A lot of times I'll tell investors to look at that property on an aerial map and you can see where the building's going to happen next. I also tell buyers or investors, watch out for what we call the builder totem pole. What's that? Well, it's the little pole outside of a, neighborhood or on a street that says this builder, this builder, this builder, this builder. That means that they're building a lot of supply and increasing the inventory. Well, when you have a high supply and high inventory and the number of sales is the same, your price is never going to go up in a neighborhood like that. So you need to be cognizant of where you're buying.
Yeah, if you're buying a rental property anywhere where new construction is even a possibility, then the value of that house will never go up any more than whatever it costs to build a house. Mm-hmm. And you want to buy in areas where there's no longer land available to build it, so that your price is going up based on demand, and those houses can become worth much more than whatever it costs to build new houses. Another mistake people make is most real estate investors, when they're brand new investors, especially civilian investors, their only experience with real estate is their own home. So sometimes they bought a home in a nice neighborhood and their home became worth more, and they say, gosh, maybe I should buy 2 houses in my neighborhood. But the truth is that, most investors, the house they live in is probably a much nicer, more expensive house than the house that they should be buying for their tenant. So they really need to think about, when you're buying rental property, you probably want to buy kind of that first-time home buyer house. Maybe it's a $150,000 house, not the $4 or $5 or $6 or however many $100,000 house that you as an investor live in. If you're going to buy expensive houses in your own neighborhood, you're not going to get good cash flow. It's probably poor leverage, poor use of your money.
Now, one thing that we see investors do a lot is they'll buy a house, they'll get a great deal on a house, but the house is in an area where the appreciation is rotten. It's, 0 or, maybe only 1 or 2% a year. If you get one of these houses, you need to just turn around and resell it quickly and,
take your profit.
Take your profits.
Reinvest it in a better area.
Take your profits and reinvest it in a better area. Exactly. There's no use holding on to it if it's not going to appreciate.
Now, we teach a very comprehensive bonus class we call a Get Rich Slow class, and it really goes into all the details of how you need to understand long-term return on investment for rental properties. So we don't have time to go through everything here, but I will talk about cash flow for just a minute. A lot of times people who buy rental properties think that it's all about cash flow. Ooh, I want to get, more cash flow. And you really shouldn't be caring as much about cash flow as long-term return on your investment. In other words, you could have a property, maybe it makes you $80 a month after all the expenses in cash flow. So $80 a month in a year, you make $1,000. In 10 years, you make $10,000. I guarantee you in 10 years, you're not going to give a damn about that $10,000. You're going to look at that house in 10 years that you've had for 10 years, and you're going to say, gosh, how much did I pay for it 10 years ago, and how much can I sell it for now? And if you can make $100,000, which is not uncommon or unreasonable at all on that property, that's going to be a great investment. But if it made you $10,000 and it didn't go up in value, that's going to be a terrible investment. Now, there is a business model that's called slumlording, and I'm not judging it. There's nothing wrong with it. I know people that do it. Slumlording is all about buying a bazillion properties that each get $100 a month, and if you buy 200 units and you're making whatever $100 a month per unit, you can make $20,000 a month doing that. But me, I don't want to be a slumlord of 200 low cost housing units. I would rather buy properties that appreciate a lot, causing my net worth to go down up a lot, and then I can sell off some properties and pay off the others, and end up owning a smaller number of higher grade properties that are generating the same amount of cash flow because they're all paid off. So you have to be thinking about, do you really want cash flow or appreciation? And certainly, do you want cash flow? If to get cash flow, you have to invest in rotten appreciation areas.
Some people have in their head that a great rental area is an area where there are a bunch of other rentals, and a lot of investors will make the mistake of buying in an area where they're surrounded by other rental property.
I've actually had a property manager say to me, oh, I know a great area for rental properties. This is a great rental area, and he's saying that because every other house in that neighborhood is a rental house, and think about that.
You really want to buy in areas where you're the only rental property.
Yeah.
Why? Because homeowners typically take a lot better care of their properties, a lot better care of their lawns, a lot better care of everything than a tenant would. So what does that mean for you? It means you're going to have a higher resale value on it because the area surrounding you looks just that much nicer.
Right. We also see a lot of people that buy for the future potential. Oh, well, this slum is someday going to be a nice area, or once they get the crime out of this area, it's going to be a nice area. Once the metro station goes in, it's going to be a nice area. Well, maybe it will, and maybe it won't. We know areas that.
And how long will it take if it does?
But we know rotten parts of town that have been rotten for 40 years, longer than I've been in this game, but and they may be rotten for another 40 years. If you're buying based on future potential, crime areas or whatever, that's gambling. You don't have to be a gambler. You want to be an investor.
And you also need to not buy for yourself when you're buying a rental property. You need to buy, with long-term appreciation in mind. If your preference is, you only want a house that's 4 sides brick and you want it to be in the suburbs, that's great for you, but it may not be great for, your rental property. You need your rental property to maybe even be 4 sides wood. Who cares? It's just a little bit more maintenance.
You want expensive dirt with
downtown
cheap houses on
or
it.
Close to town or, high appreciation areas.
Yeah. Another big mistake that investors make, frankly, is they make their investments based on the advice of realtors and not other investors. Honestly, I love realtors. I even married a realtor, and this is a realtor who's also an investor. But most realtors are not trained as investors.
And they will send you to the great rental areas, right? That you don't really want to be.
Because realtors are trained to tell you really to get you what you want, not necessarily what you need. I need something that's going to give me the right return on my investment. Realtors are trained to get you the pretty white picket fence and the pretty colors and the pretty this and they're appealing to people's hearts more than their heads, because the vast majority of buyers, civilian buyers, are buying something because they just want this and they want what they want, and that's great. But as an investor, it's not what I want that matters, it's what I need that matters, and what I need is a good return on my investment, and that's not what realtors are designed to do.
And you also need to make sure that you don't buy a property that's too big or too small. Investors get in trouble when they stop obeying the 3-2 rule. What's the 3-2 rule? It's that the world wants a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home. That is their minimum requirement. Some investors will buy, smaller homes or 2-bedroom, 1-bath, or 2-bedroom, 2 baths, which are okay as long as the land is good, but you do get into trouble if the land underneath it's not great. Now, when you go in and buy too big, I don't really like to own rental property that's really above 12 to 1,500 square feet. Why? Because it gets so much more expensive to repaint the place. It gets so much more expensive to recarpet and refloor the place, and you're probably not getting that much more extra a month in rent, and it may not even be appreciating that much more extra. So you need a minimum requirement, which is probably the 3-bedroom, 2-bath, but you don't want to go too far below that or too far beyond that.
Well, just remember, you're buying dirt, so you really want cheap houses on expensive dirt versus in the far off suburbs where you have new construction, where you've got expensive houses on cheap dirt. So
Right.
you're buying dirt. Don't ever forget it. And you do need to maintain these properties. If you have a property that's looks like it's a crappy house, then your neighbors won't have much incentive to keep their houses looking good. And the entire
And their
value,
house will sell for less.
Yeah, if their house sells for less, your house will sell for less. You want the neighborhood to appreciate over time.
And you need to hire the right property manager. You need to hire someone who is aggressive, who will not let that property sit vacant for too long. You need to hire someone who's, the salt of the earth, who can talk to people from, the low income housing, units that you might have to the higher income housing units that you have. You need to get someone who can, span that gamut, and to make sure that they're the right person for you and doing a job and letting you know there's a problem with the property or there's a problem with the tenant. You need to know what's going on at your properties, and you need to make repairs before they become, small repairs before they become major repairs.
Yeah, I made that mistake early on when I was managing some of my own properties, and frankly, I wasn't a very good property manager because, if somebody was late paying the rent, I wouldn't get around to even calling them for a couple of weeks, and then I'd call them and they'd give me some story, and I'd call them again 3 weeks later when the check they said was in the mail never showed up, and frankly, I probably lost money because I didn't manage my own properties very well. So I discovered very quickly that I could make more money by focusing on the things that I'm good at and turn over the property management to somebody who's good at that.
Some investors will try and start a project without getting a permit, and they'll get caught by the city inspectors who are just sort of doing drive-bys and notice that there's work being done on that property. What happens when that happens to you? Well, most cities have sort of a red tag process where they will red tag you, and you can no longer do work on the property until you actually get the proper permits and inspections done on it. So do be careful of that. Do know, what your city requires with regards to its codes and what you need to have permits for and what you don't need to have permits for.
You can make money in this business without cutting corners or breaking laws. And by the way, the most common mistake that new investors make when they buy renovation projects is they simply underestimate the cost. They simply underestimate. No matter, the expert's the guy that says it'll cost the most and it'll take the longest. And you should probably be listening to the experts, because when people get overly optimistic, it won't cost that much. It'll only cost $10,000 to fix, and then it ends up costing $25,000 to fix. And we've seen that happen on numerous occasions. Underestimating cost. That comes right out of the bottom line. These renovation projects, they all seem like such good ideas going in, and it's so exciting and when you're doing the remodel. But it all gets tallied up at the end, and if this property ends up costing much more than you anticipated to fix up, by the time you sell it, you're going to have to get top dollar, or you're going to be losing money and bringing money to the closing table.
You also see investors who underestimate the time to finish. We actually talked to one investor who was trying to get a hard money loan from a colleague of ours. And the guy said, well, tell me about your finances. How are you going to pay for this project? Well, he was going to get the hard money loan for the actual renovation and the rehab, but the hard money lender was still going to require him to make payments on it, until the time that it's sold. And he asked the guy, I don't see from your finances how you're going to be able to make these payments.
And the
guy,
lender said that.
Yeah, the lender said that. And the guy basically said, well, it's a $30,000 job. I'm going to have the job finished and the house sold within 30 days. Well, that's absolutely ridiculous. I don't care who you are. On average, and this is, again, just a good rule of thumb for you, your remodeling contractor will spend about $5,000 a week. So, a $30,000 project is about a 6-week project. Now, if you bring someone in for, specific tasks like, foundation or roof or air conditioning, you can spend $5,000 in basically a day or less. So also know that there's that end of it. But when you take out some of those big ticket items, your remodeler is going to charge you about $5,000 a week is a good rule of thumb.
And you want to make sure you've got enough money to do the project. There's nothing worse than a situation where somebody starts a remodeling project and then just simply runs out of runway. They don't have enough money to get the project done. So if you're financing with hard money or however you're financing the project, make sure you've got plenty of money to get that project done, even some extra money available to carry that deal and get that project done.
And the same thing goes for time. A lot of the hard money loans out there hard money lenders only want to give you a 6-month loan. Well, it may take you 3 months to do the project, but it may take you 3 to 9 months to actually sell the property. So you need to make sure that you get enough time on the loan.
And you do want to have some thought about the timing of the project. There's certain times a year in different parts of the country where it's better or worse to sell a house. And, it's no secret. It's hard to sell a house, in November and December, for example. So if you're buying a project and it's a renovation project, knowing approximately how long it's going to take and when the house is going to be in the market should be factored in. If you're going to buy a house in the summer and it's going to be finished at the end of October, guess what? You're not going to sell that house again until spring, and you should factor that into the deal.
And change orders. Do not make any change orders. I can't emphasize that enough. What happens with change orders? Number one, they get very costly. Your contractor is going to give you outrageous bids to do change orders because why? They already know that they got you. They're already in. They already got the job. It's just an extra incremental cost. And they'll get you on that. The other thing I'll say about change orders is they will slow down your project. If you say that, I want to change my color of tile, then your GC has to call a sub and say, don't come out today because we got to get a new tile. And then the sub will say, well, gosh, I can't come out again for another 3 weeks because I got this other big job and you just lost 3 weeks on the market. And then that takes you back to the previous point, which is you may miss your market. You may miss your market timing.
Yeah, new investors love to tinker with the projects and say, oh, well, couldn't we change this or add this or put a window in here or whatever it is, and that can be the kiss of death as far as...
It is not your house. Do not over-improve it, okay? Right. Don't build the Taj Mahal. You also need to be very specific in your bids. You need to outline every single thing that you want done. If you want brushed nickel, you need to outline brushed nickel for the ceiling fans, for the fixtures, for the doorknobs, and for the hinges, and even for the door stops. And trust me, we've learned that the hard way.
You've probably figured out by now that it's this one over here that does all the project management for our projects. But yeah, a lot of new investors make the mistake when they get their bids from their contractors of accepting the contractor's bid. And, contractors, they've done this 1,000 times, folks. If you're a new investor, this may be your first time. So you've got a pretty significant disadvantage when you're negotiating with a contractor. And the contractor's perfect bid is a single piece of paper that says, fixed house, $25,000. He wants to put as little detail as possible in his bid because the less detail there is in the bid, first of all, it's easier. He can be lazy when he puts his bid together. But if there's no detail, what did you pay for? Fixed house. Well, gosh, in his opinion, the only thing wrong with the house is he needed to replace the doorknob. I replaced the doorknob. That's $25,000. In your opinion, it needs, new sheetrock and everything. So you need to get extremely specific. We always get the contractor's bid. And we say, that's nice. Is this what you meant? And we hand them back, our 14-page bid, and this is one of the things we teach in the class where we go through the spreadsheet that we give our students that breaks the contractor's bid out into a multi-page bid, and then we say, okay, you sign my contract that spells out all the details for your bid.
You also need to build in a timetable. If your contractor is late on finishing the job, and you'll typically see contractors being late on finishing jobs when it's a very hot market and they're working on 10 or 15 jobs at once, versus they'll be very quick to finish a job if it's a slower market and they've only have you to finish, so they were going to want the money as quick as possible. But you do want to go ahead and factor in some sort of a charge, and it could be nominal, it's going to have to be something that your contractor is going to sign and agree to, but it just gets their head in the game, and it understands that, time, it helps them understand that time is money, and you need to get on it
hold
quickly.
some money back and make them have a sense of urgency, because I've been in situations in hot markets. Is nothing worse than having a property that's 95% done, and it just sits there for several weeks, waiting for the contractor to come and finish the project.
Yeah.
Wholesaling and bird dogging mistakes. Well, the first thing, if you're a wholesaler, you better have a buyer's list, because you're not going to have very much time to sell this thing after you get it under contract. So you're going to want to understand who the buyers are and have them lined up in advance.
You also need a formal agreement to get paid. What is that formal agreement? It's simply an assignment of contract. You don't want to bring it to a new buyer that you don't know and have that buyer try and work around you. You want to get your contract signed with the original seller, and then the formal agreement to assign the contract signed with the investor that you're selling it to.
Yeah. And not getting the property under contract, you want to make sure you've got a contract on something before you offer to sell it to somebody else. Otherwise, somebody can take that deal out from under you.
And don't forget, you've got to come up with the right pricing on this stuff. We went through the 70% of ARV minus repairs model. That's great if you're the one who's executing on the deal, but if you're trying to wholesale that to another investor, then you need to offer less than 70% of ARV minus repairs, because you need to make sure that your investor can afford to pay your fee as well.
Right. Trying to save money by doing a single close instead of a double close. A lot of times it's okay to do a single close, especially if you're working with a group of buyers that you've done deals with before, you can trust, you've got a trusting relationship. But sometimes you're in a situation, if you sell something to somebody you've never done business with before, where you really don't want them to know what you're buying it for. You really don't want your seller to know that somebody else is buying it from you. So you may want to, in those kinds of situations, do a double close, a simultaneous close, to hide those underlying transactions. And
the bottom line with that is you just need to make sure that you're dealing with reputable people who aren't going to try and work you out of the deal.
Yeah. And not getting estimates for repairs that need to be done in advance. You need to understand, what the thing is worth, what it's going to cost to fix, what the numbers are on the deal, and you're going to need to be able to articulate that to prospective buyers. I will say that a lot of wholesalers, especially new wholesalers, they really don't understand any of this stuff, and then they just make up a bunch of stuff where they say, oh, it won't cost that much to fix, and it's worth $200,000 when it's really only worth $150,000. The buyers are going to do due diligence. They're going to have real bids done. They're going to have real market analyses done, and they're going to do comparative market analyses. They're going to figure it out. If you lie and misrepresent a deal, all you're doing is creating a bad reputation for yourself and wasting a lot of people's time. You're not going to fool anybody. Nobody's going to fall for it, because they're going to all do their due diligence and just end up terminating their contract after they find out that the deal is really not a good deal.
And if you have the money, you need to fix the scary things that are going on with the property. What do I mean by that? Scary things that are going to make your end buyer offer you a much lower price. For example, if you know that the HVAC system is broken, but all it needs is a $200 part to get it back running again, versus, you may want to go ahead and fix it, because an end buyer is going to think, oh my God, the AC's dead. They're going to just go and peek their head and look at it and say, gosh, that could be a $4,000 expense. I can't afford to buy this property,
right.
Or I can't afford to give you what you're asking for from a bird dog fee. So if it's something you can afford, you may consider doing sort of the prehab strategy on it.
Yeah, we sometimes also see houses that are, just filled with trash, and sometimes there's so much trash in the house you can't even really see what's going on with the house. So if you're wholesaling it, you might consider at least cleaning out the trash, or enough of the trash so that a prospective buyer can see that, oh, this is not such a bad house after all, because when they look at the house, they're going to assume that everything they don't understand is a major problem that needs to be fixed. If they can't see what's going on in the house, they're going to assume that the house is, a total disaster and it's going to cost a fortune to fix. If you can prove to them that this house is in better shape, it's got good bones, there's not that much wrong with it, it's not going to cost you $4,000 to fix the AC, it's only $200 or whatever. You want to prove that to them, because then they'll be able to pay more money for the house from you.
You also need to make sure that you have your power team up and ready to go, because if you can't find an end buyer and it's something that you want to execute on, you need to have the power to be able to take this house down and buy it by working with a hard money lender, working with a title company, or whoever else is on your power team, so that you can get it and move forward on it.
And don't give up too early. It does take time to find these things. It does take time to find buyers. You've got to be persistent, just like with any of these strategies. Right.
And, don't let this be your only strategy. Consider moving up to some of the other 12 strategies that we've gone over. It's important to be able to graduate from a wholesaling bird dogging degree into the, much more, intense and in some cases a lot more profitable money-making buying and selling strategies.
Yeah, I always tell people that are new investors, and they say, oh, I just want to get started wholesaling, make a little money, and then once I have a little money, I'm going to go on to some of the other strategies. And to me, I say that's ridiculous. First of all, of the 12 strategies that we use and the 12 strategies that we teach, 6 of them don't require any money at all, and 6 do. So there's lots of other strategies that you can make money on that don't actually cost any money or require any capital to do. But I always say also that, don't worry so much about the money. There's a perception that, if I don't have any money, I really need to do wholesaling. I had a kid come to me one time, a college student who was taking one of my classes. And he said, gosh, I'm so worried if I can be a real estate investor because, I don't have any money. And I said to him, do you have any deals? And he said, yeah. I said, I found this $800,000 house, and I think I can get it for $350,000. And I said, well, offer him cash and tell him you can close on Friday. And this kid's like, I don't have $350,000. I said, you get it under contract, then the last thing you'll have to worry about is coming up with $350,000. Money is always looking for deals. I will partner with you. I will, do the deal with you. We'll split the profit. There's lots of ways to get deals like that done. So don't limit yourself, like Shanoa said, just to wholesaling when there's so many other ways you can make money along the way.
Yeah.
What an outstanding, enjoyable weekend and I spent with Bill and Shanoa. Beyond my expectation, I have been investing a little bit in real estate for only about 25 years. I think they corrected a lot of things I was doing, and I'm excited about going out for the next 10 years and making a bunch of money.
I find that I'm coming out of this class being extremely inspired by what I spent time learning in here and feeling like I've got a whole new level of confidence in what I can do going forward.
I've been bought so close, and yet I just haven't been able to kind of bring the deals together, and I think that's what I'm picking up this weekend.
It's not a lot of high sales pitch, it's just content. And wow, I've just really learned a lot. I'm really excited to get out there and start making some money.
It's It's great. I never had any clue or idea that I would learn just half as much of the stuff that I've already learned. The course isn't even over with yet.
It's been a very thorough and quite informative session, and listening to a lot of the different types of deals going on and looking back at what's happened in the last few months, I'm kind of wishing that I'd taken this course a few months ago.
The material is tremendous. They covered a lot of different information.
I think the marketing itself was probably worth the tuition, and then the second day, the 12 methods of buying and selling is really above and beyond a lot of stuff I've learned, and this is something I can go out and apply, and I feel really confident as a student that I can apply a lot of the knowledge, because what's being taught in the class is really kind of step 1, step 2, step 3, something that you can kind of follow logically, and then you can do it out in the real world. And so to me, it's very practical.
It was an excellent training program. I learned a whole lot of information and a lot of strategies that they provided.
They just gave you more options than each 1, 2, or 3. They gave you like 20 options.
But they offer all these different strategies to acquire real estate, different ways to market and get leads. They also talk about a lot of other things too, like how to set up business plans.
I also like Shanoa and Phil because they take time to talk with you.
For me, the major value was just to have all these things laid out on a table as this is applicable to these situations. It's been a very good experience, very good 2 days spent.
How does this compare to other classes you've taken?
I would say that dollar value, this is invaluable. It's much better than anything else I've done so far.
Other courses don't usually cover so many different strategies.
I have been involved with other real estate type programs. This one is different in that it provides more hands-on, one-on-one kind of real estate training.
This one is by far the best, and I have learned a ton.
I've made significantly higher investments in mentorship and training programs, and they've been valuable, but I think this one will have a greater eventual return on investment.
I took a lot of real estate courses, probably spent $50,000 real estate courses.
Wow.
Yeah. This was the best course I've taken.
I have taken classes before regarding real estate, but it was all basically theories, no practical steps into getting involved in real estate. And this class instead was very structured and very detailed about what steps you can take one after the other to be successful.
A lot more options that they have explained to us about how we can buy things and sell things, things that weren't told to us before. It's brought a lot of useful tools to our table, and I've really enjoyed the class and enjoyed the instructors.
It's great. I mean, it's got to pay for itself. It already has, because I already have my first deal, so
Way to go.
it's well worth it.
So I would totally recommend this to everybody.
I definitely recommend taking this class.
So I recommend this very much to everyone who's involved that is interested in real estate.
So I definitely recommend this class.
Money really well spent, and I would highly recommend it to anybody that's interested in doing real estate investing.
I highly recommend this course to you. If you want to learn real stuff, that's the course you should take.
Well, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the product today. If you'd like to learn more about our products and services, please go to loveamericanhomes.com. We've got a lot of different products, and we teach a lot of real estate investors. In fact, we've taught hundreds of the nation's top real estate investors and some realtors along the way how to make money in real estate using usually non-traditional real estate transactions. We have a number of different training products. Some of our training products are available on our website. Many of them are actually taught by invitation only. Some of those products are listed below. We teach marketing and acquisition strategies, lead processing and negotiating strategies. We teach all of the top investment techniques. We teach how business plans are put together and marketing plans, advanced business management, basically how to grow your business and scale it to make more money, as well as short sale transaction processing, mortgage assignment, the top investor's mistake, 8 years to financial freedom. And of course, we will do transaction processing for you. We do want to partner with you. We do want to do your short sales. We do want to help you do your mortgage assignment programs. So a lot of this information can be found at loveamericanhomes.com. And if you'd like to be invited to one of our private events, send us an email. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks. I'm Phil Grove. Bye-bye.